It sounds harmless, El Niño, doesn't it? But the return of the climate pattern has scientists bracing for the worst. Last seen in 2016, it led to the world's hottest year on record. Extreme weather events, droughts, higher malnutrition rates, and devastated livelihoods. Well, now it's back. The U.S.-based National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has reported the arrival of El Niño after above-average ocean surface temperatures began to emerge in the eastern Pacific Ocean during May. The agency said there was a 56% chance that this El Niño would be considered strong and a 25% chance that it could be a supersize. The warning is setting off alarm bells as the planet is already grappling with record warming and its consequences. In the densely populated U.S. Northeast, including New York City and Washington, smoke from wildfires burning to the north in Canada is darkening skies and affecting people's health and air travel. New York officials are urging residents to stay indoors as the city experiences historically dangerous conditions.
Stay indoors. It's the best way to protect yourself from exposure, particularly as we're seeing changes in the numbers, changes in the levels of pollution. If you can't stay indoors, go out and you have to be outside, wear a high-quality mask like the one you have around your neck. And avoid outdoor gatherings, avoid outdoor events.
The smoky haze comes at the start of the summer travel season and is also prompting the cancellation of many events. Here's what some New Yorkers and visitors are saying.
It's like a real heavy feeling. It's like you feel like you have asthma or something is going on inside. Unless you have something to drink, something to cover your face, your mouth with, you can definitely feel the effects of it. Your eyes, it's like you'll be good for a little while and then you'll start feeling like a burning sensation.
It's scary. I think you know, the climate's become much hotter and drier, and the situation's much more extreme.
I hope that because it was so dramatic and just so visible, and it's what everyone is talking about, that hopefully it sheds some light and some attention on how serious of an issue this is, the fact that we're only going to see more things like this in the future, and that it really is time for immediate and substantial action.
Let's take a closer look with Matthew Capucci. He's a meteorologist and joins us from one of the affected cities, Washington, D.C. You're there today where the air alert level has reached code purple. What is that like?
You know, truth be told, I didn't know it went above red, which sounds ignorant on my behalf, but this really isn't something that East Coast meteorologists in the United States have to deal with all that often. I looked out the window this morning looking for the airport, looking for the Washington Monument, all the landmarks I can ordinarily see, only about 2-3 kilometers away, and I couldn't see any of them. The sky was a milky white, thick soup that everything was really invisible. It was like having a cloud on the ground, but it's a cloud that has like this noxious smell and has a pungent scent to it. Our eyes sting, our throats hurt a little bit, and really this pollution will stick around these next 36 hours until the winds finally change direction. Until then, however, winds are out of the north. It's pumping down that smoke. New York, Baltimore, Philly, Boston, Pittsburgh, and of course Washington, D.C., a high-impact event where it's dangerous to go outside for extended periods of time.
Let's talk about the dangers. What are the health implications of such poor air quality?
So the smoke is made up of something called PM 2.5, or very, very fine, small particulate matter, only a couple microns across. We can't see it. It's microscopic. But the issue is it gets into our lungs. It gets into our bloodstream. It can cause issues. Ordinarily, the first folks to feel impacts are the elderly, vulnerable populations, the young, or those with underlying health conditions, i.e. respiratory or heart conditions. But really now, these numbers, the air quality indices, have reached a level where it's dangerous to just about anyone outside. We can actually rate this on a scale of 0 up. Anything below 50 is healthy. Anything over 100 is concern. Here where we are, we saw values between 300 and 400 earlier on today, really off the charts.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, scientists just confirmed the arrival of the El Niño phenomenon. Zooming out a bit, in practical terms, what does that mean?
So El Niño and La Niña are opposites. It's like a pendulum that goes back and forth every 3 to 7 years. El Nino is characterized by a warming of water temperatures in the eastern tropical Pacific, which does a couple things. Number one, those warm waters off the coast of Ecuador and Peru prevent the upwelling of colder, nutrient-rich waters from below, so it really stunts fishing and stunts the marine economy over that away in portions of Central and Southern America. That's local. On the broader scale, though, it shuffles weather patterns. So on the good side, it'll knock back hurricane activity a little bit in the Atlantic and make it more difficult for hurricanes to form this year. On the bad side, however, it helps raise Earth's temperature, which, on top of an already warming background, will likely propel us into record territory since it overlaps with climate change.
So the higher likelihood of severe weather events, if I've understood that correctly, will that be felt equally around the world?
Equally, I wouldn't necessarily say, but I'd say in environments like this, we definitely expect higher impact weather. One of the tricky things with this particular El Nino is that it doesn't necessarily look like an El Nino in terms of how it's classically appearing. Sure, we got the warmer water temperatures in the eastern tropical Pacific, but it's warm in literally like every ocean across the world. We're setting records everywhere, which when we have that sort of environment tells me we'll likely see record-setting weather systems. We just don't necessarily know what kind. We just know there'll be sort of more atmospheric chaos. I wish I could provide a better answer, but really we just know it'll be sort of uncertain but likely highly impactful.
This time around, El Nino is expected to be either strong or supersize. Can you explain what the difference there is?
Yeah, so we measure how strong an El Nino event is based on how warm those water temperatures in the eastern tropical Pacific are in an imaginary box called the Niño 3.4 region. Basically, we draw a box, we look and see how warm above normal the water temperatures are. In the case of a strong El Nino, which is possible, we would see water temperatures like 1.5 degrees above where they otherwise should be. And that would have bigger implications globally in terms of temperatures, precipitation patterns, extreme drought, extreme flooding, extreme heat events, stuff like that. If we get into that territory, which there's a chance we might, then obviously the worldwide implications will be greater. We're just sort of still ironing out the details as to what exactly that would look like.
Could the El Nino push us past the 1.5 degree point?
Most definitely, yeah. So that 1.5 degree threshold you mentioned a moment ago sort of corresponds to what government scientists with the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change across the world, have cautioned about for years, that there's sort of this very concerning level that occurs at 1.5 degrees Celsius worldwide temperature above pre-industrial levels. We haven't really nicked to that threshold yet, but it's very likely, if not certain, we will with a very strong El Nino event if that does come to manifest. We're heading in that way anyway. We'll surpass that threshold really anyway in the 2030s, essentially full time. But the first time we'll breach that threshold will likely be in the next 5 years. And the World Meteorological Organization says there's a 98% chance this next 5-year block we have coming up will be the warmest 5-year block ever recorded.
Matthew Capucci, that was very clear. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
Thank you.
Now, in the face of a warming planet, the world's oceans play an increasingly important role. Not only do the oceans produce oxygen and help feed us, they also regulate our climate. They capture more carbon than anything else on the planet and also absorb around 90% of the heat generated by rising emissions. But the oceans are themselves affected by climate change. As their temperatures rise, so do sea levels, and marine biodiversity is being lost. That includes many of the world's coral reefs. But on a small island off Colombia, a foundation is trying to turn the tide. It's developing a unique way of growing small coral fragments under the sea to create new reefs. Our correspondent Nicole Reese went to the island of San Andres in the Caribbean.
A new home under construction. Biologist Maria Fernanda Maya is drilling holes for one of the most fascinating creatures in the ocean, corals. For now they're still small, but they could grow into a new reef here in the waters of San Andres Island. It is a team effort involving locals, scientists and diving schools.
For us, it is really important to focus on the coral restoration and help the reefs. We live on an island in the middle of the ocean, and our economy almost entirely depends on coral reefs. And the impact that humans have on the ocean at the moment is too big and too negative. We want our impact on our ecosystem to be positive.
Corals are vital in helping to protect coastlines from erosion and boosting biodiversity. But they are in serious trouble worldwide. In Colombia alone, 60% of them are damaged or under threat. Of particular concern is stony coral tissue loss disease that started spreading last year.
It kills them in 2 or 3 months or in a matter of days. So we are very worried because the disease is already here. What are we doing against it? We inject antibiotics. It's amoxicillin hydrate. But you need to buy it in the US and use the help of governments or foundations.
An expensive and difficult underwater treatment is available, paid for by donations. But Charia says that it is vital that the government now invests in the program, as they do with coral restoration, part of Colombia's ambitious plan to restore 200 hectares of reefs. Here in San Andres, fisherman Arnold Hagsen Rodriguez also has an interest in that ambitious plan. He too helps transplant corals into the reef just opposite the small beach restaurant that he runs.
That is part of me, and that is what's going to help us get some fish and protect the houses, protect our beach also.
2 decades ago, he needed only 2 hours to get enough fish in one go. Now, with the reefs degrading, it can take up to a day. But Rodriguez has hope now because of the new corals.
We put them there first day, and like in 3 weeks, when we went back there, they was growing. I was like surprised. I couldn't believe it. When I heard about it first time, I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable.
It will take time for the small corals to grow into proper reefs. And with the pressure on the ecosystem, not all of them might make it. The team on San Andres are aware of that. But every effort counts to save the ecosystem and the ocean on their doorstep.